Hello, families of gifted and talented students. My name is Meredith Aby-Keirstead, and I'm the High School Gifted and Talented Coordinator. As of today, the 4th of August, I want to give you an update on where we're at with our gifted plans for the fall, in part because by tomorrow you have to have decided whether or not you want to do Bloomington online school. And I feel like it would be hard to make that decision as a parent if you didn't understand what the face to face options would look like this fall. This is, as I know of today, this is what the hybrid schedule will look like for the fall for both high schools. Your student would be in Group A or in Group B. It would mean that they would see their teacher and half their classmates on either Monday, Thursday, or Tuesday, Friday. On Wednesday, all the kids would be together virtually, and it would be in a 40-minute class period. And so, like period one, my understanding would be from like 8 to 8:40. And that's sort of the plan that we have for right now. Because DA High School for 9th and 10th grade and all levels, except for DA STEM at the 10th grade level, is having kids be at one high school or the other, we would need to bus kids from one high school to the other, and then back again to their other high school. Um, and we're working out those logistics for how we would do that busing. But that is the plan, just like we said you it would be in the fall. Last night at the school board meeting, they talked about this idea of hybrid flex. I hadn't heard about it until last night, so I'm not going to pretend that I know more about it than I do. But this is my understanding is that hybrid flex is an opportunity for students to participate in the hybrid or traditional schools remotely, that students would be assigned to a teacher who is not able to come back to do face-to-face instruction for the fall. So therefore they're not going to my knowledge, be with their teacher. They're going to be with this other teacher who is going to be teaching virtually. However, I can't guarantee that that teacher would be a GT trained teacher or that they would be getting access to GT or even AP curriculum. The students would be based with a teacher at their home high school. And the idea is that it gives you the opportunity to pop back into the classroom if conditions or your circumstances change. I think it's important to understand that that option would be challenging if you're not sort of keeping up with the content in the same way. But of course, one of my responsibilities would be to try to help you with that as much as possible. So our plans for DA STEM. This year is going to be our first year that we're doing this. The classes will be housed at Jefferson. Kennedy students will be bussed over. The students are going to take AP Computer Science Principles for the first half of the year and AP Environmental Science the second half of the year, and Honors Algebra 2 the first half of the year, and Honors Pre-Calc the second half of the year. We want to make sure that if students really can't do face-to-face instruction, that they are able to decide to do that and that we will not have that hurt their ability to be in the DA program long term. So if you need to do Bloomington online school, the gifted department has decided that we will make sure that kids can get access to that same amount of math through Northern Star Online. And then that means that next year in the fall, when hopefully we will not be having a pandemic, you would be able to jump into AP Calc 1 and 2 and be able to jump into AP Physics because you would have the prerequisite math. If you took Bloomington Online Schools, our hope would be that there would be enough students that would choose that option that you could be in an honors section of Physical Science 9, but we don't have control of that. But so that's what we have is that if you're, Bloomington decided last night at the school board meeting they're going to do hybrid instruction. If you can't do a hybrid model, you should choose to do Bloomington online, and we will make sure that you get the same amount of math that you would have gotten. And we will hopefully be able to make sure that you get a comparable, not the same, but a comparable level of science. For DA Humanities, those classes will be taught at Kennedy. Jefferson students will be bussed over. Students in the social studies portion will take classes with me. The first half of the year, we're going to do AP Human Geography, and then the second half of the year, AP Comparative Politics. And you're going to take pre-AP English and DA Composition for a Normandale Community College credit, and both of those will be Dan Richardson. Again, if you cannot do face-to-face instruction, we're starting off the year with hybrid, then you should apply for Bloomington Online Schools. My hope is that we will have enough students who apply for Bloomington Online School that we could get you into Honors English, either at Jefferson or Kennedy. And either way, I'm going to offer my classes on both an online version and a face-to-face version so that students who do Bloomington online, if you have already been approved to be in the DA cohort, you will still get to take your language arts. You'll still be able to take your social studies piece online. For DA STEM, this is pretty easy because we told you that it was going to be online in the spring, and it is going to be online. The classes will be taught similar to how they were last year. They'll be taught synchronously. Everybody will be meeting from 7:50 to 9:35. You're going to need to be able to use your NCC email and your D2L account. You're going to pick up your books from me on August 19th from 4:30 to 6:30. I'm going to tell you which parking lot I'm going to be at Normandale. Roger will monitor class attendance, and he and I will communicate with parents about grade concerns. And I've had several parents reach out to me and say, well, what if on the hybrid day my student's supposed to be in class, starting period 3, they can't get from my house to the school in that amount of time. We're going to have a spot for both students at Kennedy and at Jefferson to work on their hybrid days at their home school. So they will be able to transition from that space just down the hallway to go to their period 3 class. Students this year are going to take Calc 1, Calc 2, Pre-Chem, and then actual Gen Chemistry, and then Environmental Geology. I want to make a special note that although the school board voted last night that hybrid instruction will start on September 8th, classes are beginning at Normandale on August 24th, and that is not changing. So those classes will actually be starting on August 24th. So our expectation is that students will be ready to learn 7:50, logging into D2L so they can get into their Zoom room on August 24th. For DA Humanities, those classes will be at Kennedy High School as well. Jefferson students will be bussed over. Students will take AP World and AP European History this year with me, and take DA English 10 and Intro to Creative Writing, and they will get dual enrollment credit at Minneapolis Community College for that with Catherine Haddad. Again, if you cannot do face-to-face instruction, our hope is that we will have enough students who will opt for an honors class, so we could put you in a section of kids for honors. But I am either way. I'm offering the DA Social Studies history classes online, and so you would still be able to get access to your DA class regardless of whether or not you did hybrid instruction or online instruction. I think that it's really important this year for us to pay particular attention to the fact that we are going to be trying to help students learn during a pandemic. As GT coordinator, I'm going to work with your students' teachers, counselors, social workers, and special education staff to monitor their academic and social emotional needs. I really need parents and students to be upfront with me. I'm going to send you emails throughout the year trying to check in on workload, depression, anxiety, things like that. And I really want people to try to be honest with me so that I can support you. Also, sometimes students don't present things. It's harder if people are not in class every day. It's harder for us to monitor whether or not they are anxious or depressed or overwhelmed or frustrated. And so I really want people to feel like they can reach out to me so I can support them. Lastly, I had a lot of conversations with students and parents to try to support their students through distance learning. And although we are not talking about full-on distance learning, and even if we are doing distance learning this year, I think it's going to be better than it was last year, I want to make sure to share with you some of the things that helped our students be successful last year. Our kids really benefited from having a scheduled with a time and a place in their day for learning. So on those days when you were not coming to school, I cannot say strongly enough how important it is for that kid to still wake up in the morning, get clothes on, take a shower, have breakfast. Like, kids need structure. The kids who did not have structure last year while they were learning at home really collapsed on me. They really struggled. And so setting up a schedule for their learning day, a consistent schedule for waking up and going to sleep, a consistent place. This is where you're going to do your homework. This is your part of the house where you get to do your learning, I think is really important. Students, I think it's really important for you not to just be trying to get through the assignments, because what's hard if we don't see you every day is that we can't provide you with potentially the right amount of practice that you need in order to master the content. And so that means if independent learning that you're going to have to do this year, you're going to have to ask yourself, I got that done, but did I get it? Did I understand it? Do I still have it there in your head? And work on sort of like, quizzing yourself, making a Quizlet, taking notes, going back later and redoing the math problems that you got wrong the first time. But you need to be thinking about, did I actually get that? My students who were the most successful last year came to class prepared. And I know that that seems like a duh, but here's the deal. If we're not going to see each other every day, it means that if we're talking about that material on Tuesday, you actually have to have it read for Tuesday. Reading it by Friday when we're no longer going to be talking to each other, that doesn't really help in that same way, because you might have an idea on Friday that I could have helped you with on Tuesday, but now we're not seeing each other in order to be able to clear that up. So really sort of sticking with that schedule of when you're supposed to get things done and have things read by, I think is particularly helpful under this type of sort of not being with your teacher every day plan that we're going to have. Some students communicated more regularly with me to make sure they understood deadlines. Some students felt more comfortable asking their peers for that. But I do think that a lot of people had struggled last year with understanding, when is something due? What am I supposed to be doing? And if you are struggling with that, figuring out some support systems so you can make sure that you know what you're supposed to do, as opposed to just dig yourself a giant hole. Last year, some students really struggled with keeping track of all of their stuff, in part because maybe they were doing their homework in 5 different rooms. And so I think that it's helpful to put your stuff in the same Google Drive, to label the stuff, have different folders in your Google Drive for different classes, maybe different folders within those classes for different units, to have a binder to keep all of your learning materials together and not just take notes on random things and then leave them all over the house. It's harder when you're learning in a different environment to realize that you have to recreate some of those structures that serve you well at a traditional school when you're not actually doing traditional school. Lastly, something that my students really struggled with last year is that some of my students were very lonely. And sometimes what really helped them was being like, okay, I'm going to do that assignment with a buddy as opposed to do that by myself. And so I want you to think strategically about whether or not you are working well independently, or whether or not you need to reach out to a friend to help you study for that, to work on that project together, to talk through that idea again. But to realize that just because you might not physically be with your classmates, that doesn't mean that you can't be intellectually with your classmates, because you have the opportunities to be able to work with them, just not necessarily in the way that you would have historically. Okay? If you've got questions about what you should register for next year or where we're at in our planning, you can feel free to email me at maby@isd271.org. But also my hope is that as we get closer to the start of school, I will have more information to share with you.